Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. This is Walter Bradley, and I'm here with Greg Fernandez. He's offered me the opportunity to speak, and sometimes I like to keep it short and simple, but I've been researching things that many pastors, teachers, biblical scholars, and things seem to take lightly. And I'm going to be cautious, and I don't want to be a person that will put overemphasis on things like this, because they need to be in balance, and everything balanced. And Greg, as I've mentioned to you before, I was looking at things regarding missing 411, David Pilates and his work, and the things that they do not speak of, that happened to me. And I begin to see there's a very small portion. It seems small, but it might be bigger than we even understand or know, about missing people and those that have strange events. I forgot the name of it, Deletnov Pass or Deletov, I forgot what that was. And it ties into that and my experience in the East Bay Hills, and some experiences that I am aware of, but in today's world, they do not look at it. They naysay it sometimes, or ignore it, or they don't want to bring it into the light. And that's a shame, because these things need to be told to our children, and to pray, and to be, in effect, reaching out to the Father throughout the day, because you never know when things can go south in ways that you do not expect or think can even happen. And what am I speaking about? Seems like I'm being very cryptic. But let's just start with the big one, literally, that they talk of and say they have no proof of, but they say it is and it isn't. There's a lady that's suing California to prove the existence of Bigfoot, Sasquatch. And I was reading over some stories about people that have disappeared and come back, and do not understand even what happened. And those that are abducted, per se, by aliens that do things like, now why would they be interested in babies? And why would they take them, quote unquote, from the mother? And I think at times these things are possible and do happen. And what about the Nephilim? There's some people, and one person that I looked at said they all giants trace back to men. Well, Anak looked like a man. He was a big one, though. And giants did not originate from men, and the Father didn't create people to be giants that did evil. He created us good to do good. And he created us a certain size. Now today I think we're smaller than we were then, but we were not, 1,500 or 300 foot or 200 foot or whatever the tall height of giants were. I remember when Israel went into the promised land with Joshua, it says we looked as grasshoppers before them. What is a grasshopper compared to you, Greg? How tall are you compared to a grasshopper? Wow.
I'm like a giant. I'm probably a super giant.
Huge. You could pick it up between your fingers and go, ooh, I can eat that. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Not that you would. Some people do.
No, I wouldn't.
But
no, thank you.
The point being, that's huge compared to a man. And there are also other things out there, spiritual things, like a little joke was played on me, but I think by spirits. Some would have called them fairies. Some would have called them spirits. Some would have called them aliens. But they're all spirits of evil that look at man as fallen. And sometimes these spirits do not do what we do. In fact, sometimes we could be more evil than the spirits that afflict us, I think, as weird as that may sound. And it says in Jude that the angels which did not keep their estate, meaning they didn't keep their form separate from this world, but became like unto men and had relations with women. Now, I gave you Steve ben-nun, Steve ben-nun, or Nun. I sent you a couple of his videos. I kind of resonate with him on these things, and he goes with a good biblical background on where he stands on that, and I kind of follow along with that. I go, yeah, I agree with that. And the thing that people and pastors don't want to deal with is the extreme spiritual nature of life and the judgments we're under. And some of the missing children and people are often taken by spirits and might be made slaves or are killed. I do not know. But they mock humanity, and they probably hate us based on judgments of the Father and their own viewpoints. I don't know, I don't presume to know, but based on things that I have experienced and seen, it's not a good thing. They don't like us. They like us to be afraid of them. Thankful to the Father, I have not been afraid. But when you go hiking in the woods, have you ever noticed that sometimes you feel uncomfortable, but there's no reason? Have you ever had that?
Yeah, you kind of feel like there's somebody or there's something staring at you or just watching you or something.
And I have felt like that at times, and I've hiked at night where I felt like I need to walk in the center of the trail, and I feel like I'm being followed or watched or at least noted by something. And they're not always visible, I think. I think they are interdimensional creatures. They can watch you, and an interdimensional creature can interject into this three-dimensional world from their point of view and can do things that probably we can't even imagine. They can shapeshift. They can present themselves as anything. They can present themselves as a little girl, a little boy, a monstrous dragon, or whatever you can imagine, and whatever they see in your mind, they can read it and then present it to you to watch your reaction. Kind of like a very practical joke to them. Practical joking. And it's a shame that we do not teach that there are demons, there are devils in the world, and they do act, and they do behave in ways to destroy us, or to to delude us, or to lead us, or to tell us things in our minds that are not true.
Why do you think they don't teach stuff like that? Do you think they're scared of it too, or they just don't teach it because they can't understand it?
I think it's due to the nature of the bodies of believers. It has to be done in group studies versus public, because they would upset or offend people. And they're not into doing that these days, of telling the truth. Now, yes, we have to preach on the gospel, but we have to teach what the Savior teaches. What did he say that these days would be like when the end comes? It would be like the days of Noah. And that means in that time there were giants in those days, and I'm sure they ate humans, eating and drinking. Humans, killing, eating, drinking blood, destroying mankind. Because these, as many people do not believe, were half angel and half human. Therefore they grew to immense sizes. And today they have children that disappear that are right under people's noses, and then they can't hear them. How can a child that's a toddler get so far away that he can't hear unless something has happened that is beyond the norm of this realm? Because physics plays a part in life. If I scream at a 2-year-old who's 50 feet away, if I scream and he hears, if he is sane and fearful and wants to be part of the group, which 2-year-olds don't want to get lost and be separated from their mother, dad, and friends and family. That's a given. There's the adventuresome toddler that runs around, but if they're left by themselves, they start crying and getting upset, and they want to find mama or daddy. And in some of these cases, they vanish without a sound, and you don't hear them, and you can't find them. How does that happen? It doesn't happen in a natural sense in my mind. because they could be confused much more easily, like I was confused on that event where I heard laughter. 360 degrees above me, around me, on the hills in the East Bay. Now, you haven't experienced that, but I did. And I go, wow. And it opened a door in my mind going, after the event, because during the event, I was kind of logistically in my mind going in circles, not knowing what to do. And that was the state of my mind. They have the power to upset your balance of thought, I think, when they're in good enough form. And the Father allowed it for this reason, that I might think about it. Okay, what do I need to think? Is he still the Father? Was he mad at me? Was I delving in? I had dealt in things in the past that I should not have, and I opened little doors there, which is an important aspect, not to play with the occult. Because, as a kid, you're kind of curious about it. Did you have curiosity in that, or were you one of those that fortunately didn't, entertain the thought?
The thought of the devil, or the thought of...
No, going into the occult, looking at the Ouija boards, or the tarot cards, or any of those things.
I was probably oblivious to all of that up until I was about maybe 13 or 14, but I clearly knew that that's not stuff that I should mess with. I would always get this very panicky feeling, and so I just stayed away from that stuff.
I know kids in your group would have been, and especially in California, it's kind of promoted. So you would have run across it.
True.
Did you run across anybody that was involved in it or playing?
Yes, I did.
And what did you tell them, or what did they tell you? Is what I'm curious about at their young age.
They didn't see it as anything serious. They just thought it was just, we're just messing with stuff. I remember in junior high, we did that Bloody Mary challenge where you turn off the lights in a bathroom and you get a bunch of people and you just say Bloody Mary over and over.
Yeah.
That was enough for me to know that this is not stuff that I should be playing with. Even if it's not real, it still gave me a very bad feeling, and nothing good ever came out of any of that. So, but mostly I would say people didn't take it seriously because they weren't connecting it to reality. They were just treating it as just some game, basically.
There it is. The word, they treat it as a game. Now, I was around the Ouija boards, and I'm going to be honest, I was in occultic things in my younger years. And even in the church, at one point, I was involved in a duality, thinking it was Solomon's thing. And it was really a difficult thing.
So like I was telling Walter, one of the strangest things that I saw, I didn't see anything. We were doing that Bloody Mary challenge, and everybody was saying it, maybe about 4 of us. And somebody else saw it. They freaked out, so of course we all ran out. And that was about it. But I never want to see anything like that. And it's sad. I remember you can buy a Ouija board in Toys R Us. Of course, you can't now because there's no more Toys R Us. But when there was, you could buy one there. And you could still buy them. You could still buy all that stuff. And even now, they're building a monument that is basically a monument to the devil. I think it's Baphomet or something. And it's all just, you could tell there's like maybe 10, 20 people who were out there while they were putting the statue up. It was more just a big publicity stunt, kind of like the old satanic church and all that garbage stuff. It's just all fake. I don't think that they really understand. If they did understand what they were messing with, they probably would not mess with it, or they would not be so public about it. That's just my guess. But
okay, I am here, and I am regretful of my past in a lot of ways, because as I think what you do in your past is not unjudged, nor is the Father unconcerned about those things. So one of the things I'm going to put out there for those who may listen, the few who may come across this, or the many, either case, is one, as intriguing as much as it just draws you, and it does, to look at what is there, whether it be on a Ouija board, or tarot cards, or the fairy faith, or any of those things. You don't need to go there. Why? I'm not telling you not to go, because it's going to have to be a decision you have to face yourself in your own heart. And I don't command the hearts of men. But I will tell you this. If you get into it, it's going to seem great at first. It's going to seem like you are enlightened. And many people go that way. And I'll tell you this. The Illuminati consider themselves illumined or enlightened. But what are they dealing with? Sometimes they think they understand, and maybe they do, and choose it anyway, which is far worse. But maybe some do not. And the fact is, you're dealing with Satan and his kingdom here on earth. And sometimes the spirits will either play tricks or do evil. They can kill. They can take human form. They can present themselves. And yes, they can kill. They can take you. And I went through that where I was confused, and I was about to go into this fog, and in my heart, I don't know if it's the Father or me or whatever, but it said, do not go in there. And I think if I would have walked into that fog, I wouldn't be speaking here today. And in the East Bay Hills, Oakland, East Bay Regional Parks, there are things in there that you don't want to cross. And if you're a normal, human being that doesn't seek the dark side, I think prayerfully you can enter that place and it'd be just like going to the park, walking around. It's fun and it's good. And you see nature and you appreciate the creation that the Creator made for us. But we gave up rulership when we fell in the garden to Satan. And he took rulership or administration of this realm here. He is the principality of the air. And it says that there are principalities, powers, and darkness and high places that interact with us here. And they do. In the woods, and if you're by yourself, there are things that can happen that you would not believe, like happened to me. And I'm not going to...
Hey, Brett.
Yes.
Did the devil fall from heaven first, or did Adam and Eve come first?
No, Satan did fall first, the way I read it.
Okay.
He fell.
I was curious about that.
And in that fall, whether it was right in the beginning at the creation of the world or a little before, we don't know. But it was before or right at that time. Now, there's no indication. Now, if you look up Ben-nun, the gentleman that he may have something on that. And it would be good to listen to him because he goes to Scripture. And he's a Jewish man that has some very good understanding. He reads the Hebrew, and that's why I'm looking to him to, he doesn't know it. He's kind of a mentor that I'm looking at as he's teaching me different things and as I'm learning other things that I need to know. He deals with the Anunnaki, Anunnaki, which goes back into Sumeria. The Nephilim were in the beginning and then after the flood also. How did they get here? Well, they didn't come by man. As one guy was suggesting, they come from men. Well, yeah, they're born and they're raised and they're like men, but they have 6 fingers and 6 toes. They generally are going to be 2 sets of teeth. They're going to be different. Why? Because they are not of men or of the Father. They are of an angelic host that chose to depart, as in Jude, as it says, they left their habitation to come down to this habitation, meaning the habitation of their celestial body, took on a more human form to partake with women sexually, and they had children. And they were hoping maybe God would allow this, but they became horribly evil under the fall and under Satan's guidance. These became tremendously evil. And they are still, and after they die, they are bound to this earth. They cannot leave. They cannot, and they're commonly called demons. They are demons. They're not the fallen angels, but the children of fallen angels, I do believe. And I see the evidence pointing to that. And these are the things that we are dealing with today, as I see it, is that we are in a world in which we are fallen and broken horribly. We've made horrible mistakes, horrible decisions. that bring about, if not judgments, but put us in a place of chastening by the Father. I think that more mystical things, I'll put it like that, will be happening. And you've got to watch your children, even at home, because things can happen.
Are they taking the children, experiment on them to make them hybrids? I mean, what are we talking about?
Well, I think in Missing 411, I don't say they're taken by spirits. I don't say they're taken by Sasquatch or Bigfoot. But the possibility is that there can be some interdimensional activity in some rare cases. Maybe more than we know, I don't know. Because some of them that disappear, they never find them. Could be, could be something attached to that. It's not something that you can prove, which makes it more of a speculation, which some of this is. But where, I like Sherlock Holmes where he says, when you eliminate all possibilities, you're left with answers, is basically what he says. When you've eliminated all possible other answers, what you're left with is the truth. And sometimes we don't want to face that. Have you ever been faced, Greg, with something, you've tried everything, and the answer you're looking at is not the one you expected or wanted? But that was the answer. And we each have to deal with that sometimes. Whether it's with our children, he's what? He's doing that. And the first reaction, no, I didn't raise it. I don't think, However, the reality is, our reality is not ours to shape. That's the scary thing. Our reality is far different from what we perceive. And
that's why I stopped working on my plan, and I started working on God's plan. And once I started focusing on His plan, then everything changed, and all of my plans actually started happening. But like you said, it wasn't how I thought that it was gonna happen.
And sometimes it's not the way you want it to happen. You're going, wait. No. Okay. And I've been in through that recently. I didn't want to initially leave, as I told you, and come to Texas when I did.
Oh yeah, that was sad.
The Father had a purpose in it, and He does.
Yeah, he does. He does.
And it's just the way it is, and I'm not going to go into that. But the point being is that we are, one people say, and it says, know yourself. How many people really do? Nobody. I'll tell you right now, you nor I, and I speak this authoritatively, we do not know ourselves. And if you read the Scripture and it begins to read you, it begins to reveal things that you think, no, but it's a yes. That's what we are. We are darkness, and we're not light to look into our darkness. Only the Word can reveal what is you. And then to know yourself truly, you have to read the Bible. There's no other way. Because otherwise, you're a blind, leading yourself blindly, thinking that you have light. And that's foolish. And many people do.
And then they lead other blind people, and everybody ends up going over a cliff.
Exactly. There's the point. And, to deal with life, you have to deal with reality. One of the things is we live in a spiritual realm that has more than two actually, potent forces. You have the Father and His angels. You have Satan and his minion. And then you have these others that are, Satan is not a unified kingdom. He rules with power, that's true. But there are those that kind of run their show. And it's kind of like the show Despicable Me with the minion, how they'll go their own way, and the Despicable Me character comes on and they go, yeah. It's kind of, in my opinion, kind of like that, I think, in the satanic world. Satan doesn't have 100% control, but when he shows up, things happen, whatever that might be. And we have to pray, one, for ourselves, that we be of faith, because we can slip very easily. And I remember when I was hiking, and getting back to the point of what I am talking about tonight is we're dealing with a deeply dark, sinister world in which things that happen happen sometimes that are not within our purview of understanding. In other words, spiritual beings do spiritual things, bend time, space, whatever you want to call it, enter in and touch this world, whether it's kidnapping children and it's not happening all around the world. I think it's slowly escalating. And missing 411, I saw certain ones that I went, that tie in spiritually. Like in ancient Israel, when you take off the shoe, that's a sign of a covenant. And when you come before a king or somebody of great importance, you bow, and you may be asked, is this a sacred ground? Take off your shoes. And these spirits want to be worshipped. They want to be God. And so the missing shoes and clothing folded neatly could be indicators of some things that the people who see it don't understand it.
There's something you just said that's really trippy, that you said, missing shoes. Have you seen this movie? Everybody's seen it. In the 80s or 90s, it was a big hit, called Fire in the Sky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, about that guy who gets taken on a ship. He's tortured, blah, blah, blah. There's one scene where he's being dragged, and that's what he sees, is a child's shoe. And for some reason, that image just always haunted me, always stuck out to me.
Yeah, and one of the things that Steve ben-nun talks about, you hear about reptilians. I think there are certain spirits that take human form, that enter into this world and act like regular people. They look like regular people, but maybe they're not. Maybe they have the ability.
Couldn't they just be demons?
Well, let me put it this way. The demons have little power. A fallen angel is quite different. They have power to manipulate time and space and materials. It's different. I think they're cursed, and once they can do certain things because they have angelic heritage, so to speak. But they are not a fallen angel. A fallen angel has the power to incorporeal into a body, join and create a body and function. And I think there are some. It's said by ben-nun that there are 10% that were unleashed to deceive men. And they could be people like presidents. They could be people like your nurse or a leader in some field, and or a royal family. They say they're bloodlines that are royal blood, which could be tied to the Nephilimic bloodline, which they consider the right to rule. Possibly. This is out there. And it did say that Satan would eat the flesh, that he would crawl on his belly and eat the dust of it. We are made of dust. And they say there are certain people that eat children that are reptilian. That sounds far-fetched. It sounds weird. But if it becomes as the days of Noah, these things will become more prevalent, I believe. And I think the scriptures have certain things that indicate that this is to judge the wickedness of man's rejection of him in this time. And that these things are not dealt with by the governments because they don't know really what's happening. Or if they've seen it, it frightened them so bad, what do you tell the public? You don't tell them anything about that. It could be very well the case. And
yeah, it does seem like what you're talking about with these children. When you're talking about, like, it makes me wonder. Okay, why would they go after children? What's so special about children? And then when you read in Matthew 18, when you read in Matthew 18:1 through 6, you can see how Jesus says, how do you get into heaven? You have to be like this child.
And do not forbid the children, for such is what? The kingdom of the Most High. So you see that attack is attacking what? The kingdom of the Most High. And trying to take worship from him to them. There's a purpose in what they do. Now, I don't know all those purposes, but I do think that they are assaulting the kingdom of the Most High. And I think the time comes, they will own it. They will have to, because they will not escape. But while they're here, they're going to attack those that are weak, not tied so much spiritually, that have no, quote, spiritual protections. If you can not rail, but if you can rebuke them in the name of the Father, they don't like that. If you can praise the Son and know and believe in Him, that's pretty, scary to them. No, they're not frightened, but they don't like hearing the praise of the Most High, because He is enthroned on praises. That means He's right there in the center. If you start praising the Most High, they're going to try to stop you, or they're going to leave. And that's important to think of. Start praising the Son of the Most High and proclaiming His name, Yahweh, and the Son, Yahshua, or Yeshua. And you begin to praise Him. They do not take well to that, and it's because it draws the eye of the Most High. And when His eye is on them, He's looking at them eye to eye. If you're a spirit in rebellion, if you were doing something wrong and your dad looked you eye to eye when you're in the midst of doing it and you didn't know he was there and all of a sudden he's there, what happens? What happens? You instantly stop what you're doing, look and go, "Hi, Dad." You stop and you go, "Woo, hi, what's up?" You don't continue doing it. And
yeah.
I think it's kind of like that in the spiritual realm. If he notices and looks, they're going, ugh. I think they sweat a little. I think they get nervous. I think they get caged, and they get, oh. And not that we as humans can bring that on them. It's up to the Father how He handles each situation. That situation that happened to me was for a purpose. One, to show me something. Whatever I was dealing with at the time, the Father sent that and said, "Look, this is real. This is happening to you." And He protected me even in the midst of that horrible thing. It wasn't wrong for Him to allow that, but it did give me the reality to understand the spiritual realm, which most people in the National Park Service, some of them are nominal believers or not totally solidified, and some of them get scared out there. They get frightened by hearing or seeing what they see, and they tell nobody. How does the National Park Service say, "Well, we've seen this, and this," scared the crap out? They don't want to tell people that. You want to know why? People wouldn't go to the parks then. People would be going, "Ooh, crap. That cuts off a lot of income." But the thing is, most people do not have to deal with that. There are a few, and there are some. Now, when you take your children out to a national park or anything, just like any other time, watch your children, because there's wild animals. The normal fears are still applicable, I should say, and that you need to be aware, but you need to be spiritually aware too, because some people have disappeared right in front of people where they were there and they look and go, "What? Where did he go? Where did he go? Hey. And it's not possible for someone to be like the Flash and just be poof, gone. Now, that's the areas and the ones that concern me, because it means something happened that just confused and eliminated people knowing what had happened. And then what I know Pilates says is that, and then storms come right after, eliminating traces of evidence, footprints, or a direction to go, or where dogs can follow. And dogs sometimes give up. There's no area to cover because they lose the scent. A person, when they walk, they leave a scent. It cannot be done that you walk and you don't leave your DNA to where a dog can find it. A good bloodhound, you're done. He will find you. But when a bloodhound goes, "I don't know what to do," starts going in circles, as David states, he's got some good documentation on it, and I believe him, is that it's odd. Now, I like David in his stance of not saying, "Well, I think," because it's just a thought. and he knows that would discredit to some extent. But on the other side of that, here I come and say, well then, how do we explain it when there is no explanation? It gets into the realm of the spiritual, possibly. Doesn't mean it's always true. Because sometimes people can disappear where they just can't find you. That's 99% of this, is just people can't be found. Like Brian Perry. He disappeared. And they couldn't find him. But they did find him. Unfortunately, my condolences to his family. Such a sorrow. And his friends and those who knew him. And he had fallen. And he was an Army specialist. He had been in the military. He had been trained in these things. And I'm sure it was survival. He could survive. But he slipped on rocks, probably. It takes one rock to put you on the wrong path to where you can't recover. That's why when you're hiking in these areas, you have to use extreme caution. But that answers a lot of these things, is that people go into areas and they can't be found. And they deteriorate, and animals come and carry off the bones and eat the flesh, and it's gone. So I think that's what most of it is. But there is, in my opinion, a small percentage that, like me, are assaulted in a spiritual realm as they come into the physical realm. Interdimensional, if you want to call it. Demons, or the actions and power of fallen angels that still have power, though they be chained, and still are able to afflict, so to speak. So, I know that when I go out at night now, I don't fear. But I know sometimes I sense things are there. There's a field across the street from me that I looked up, covered in dark trees, and it's always dark and foreboding. And I almost feel I'm being watched from over there at times. There's a farmland, and no, there's nothing over there. There's an old house and an old barn, and it's abandoned, but a guy owns it. He runs his property and harvests from it. But that old house is there. And spirits sometimes are attached to places, or come and attach to a place, because it's kind of a place where nobody goes. That farmer doesn't go into the house or anything, and it's kind of like a vacation for them. They can go there and watch things, and nobody troubles them. In my opinion, I don't know. But I have felt something from there. And I've walked over there and just wanted to look. And I prayed. I said, Father, protect us. Because I don't know what's there, and I don't want to provoke things. We are believers and are protected, and nothing can come against us but what the Father allows. I'm not teaching that you should be afraid of spirits running in the night trying to kill you. But there are some people that are unprotected, that do not know what to do when assaulted or run into these things. And even that time in the woods, my mind went blank on everything. It's just like my mind had been taken. And I think it was an imposition of a spirit on my mind. He was like gripping that knowledge and keeping it from me. And I decided to do some reading on, people that disappeared and came back in Ireland and everything that they say were, quote unquote, taken by the fairies. And some of these incidents, if you look at that, seem similar. And
people get lost in the woods, or
and sometimes they see little people, not tiny people, but 3 or 4 foot tall. And like the one boy that disappeared that said, the wolf fed me and the bear helped me. And they told me, don't make any noise, be quiet, and stay put. And then my grandmother, with black eyes, in the cave that I was in, it was really dirty, and lots of robots were in there. And I went, that kid ran into something supernatural. And there are supernatural events and things that happen to people. But most of them are not spoken because of one reason. Who would believe that? And it's true. And even children that are not so disposed to hide things and say, I don't remember, is what they say. I don't remember. Their minds are blanked out, just like mine was, of the information of what they could confirm, if they were able to remember.
Yeah, that's a really scary thought.
And like I say, you haven't experienced that. I mean, you didn't experience anything like that, but you have experienced the deja vu of, what? I feel like somebody's with me. That funky feeling like you're in danger. It's like the feeling of fear, but nothing is there. And you're going, what's wrong? Now, am I describing it, what you have had as an experience like that anytime? Where it's just a feeling of, ooh, wait a minute. Have you ever had that? In other words, something, you're walking in a place, you're by yourself, like, I don't know, have you gone back to the East Bay Hills where we were before at any point?
Not since you've been telling me these stories, no.
It's okay to go there. I'm not telling you not to go there. You just go prayerfully. I kept going even after that event. I wasn't afraid of them. They screwed with my head, yeah. But I said, Father, I'm going back. They don't own me. If you're going to do it again, this time I'm more understanding of things. And by your understanding, you may be more safe now than you were before. That's what I think. And I pray the Father protect you. But go back there. And go back in the evening and just pray. I went out there to pray because it's a great place to do it. Maybe that's why they didn't like me up there at times. I don't know. Because they like their thing. And it reminds me of that guy that came up and I was looking at an unidentified object, unidentified aerial phenomena, as I'll call it. And it's something
that wasn't plasma?
Water.
Was that the plasma
said,
thing?
Yep, that's what you think it is. And I wasn't soliciting information from anybody. And I went, oh, thank you. And he just went on about his business. So I knew what that was. It was not an identified flying object. It was a spiritual being making himself known to people, and he showed himself to me. And
what did it look like?
It looked like a silver teardrop shape, or like balloons, a little bit even. Silver. Sometimes appeared white, and it was interesting. And I just was stopping to think, because it wasn't moving. It's not like balloons that were floating away, or mylar. He was spherical at one point, and just sat there. So there's something in California, in the Bay Area, in Contra Costa, in Alameda, that is maybe a principality or power or high power that rules, and that's what that gentleman was speaking of. Yep, you're seeing it. And like I said, I didn't expect anything. I was just sitting there enjoying the view, like I like to do in the summer. If I was in your area right now, guess where I'd be if I had the time? I'd be up on Skyline, up at the trail there, the ranger office, and I'd be sitting and walking up there, going on Dunn Trail, and going there and just relaxing my mind and praying and seeking my tree on the Bacchus Trail. As I don't know if I ever showed you that, but I went there.
No,
and,
I don't think so.
It doesn't, take the Dunn Trail to the Bacchus Trail and walk that. Walk through.
I'm not going anywhere over there. I'm not going anywhere near that place.
That place is a beautiful spot. And
I'm sure it is.
And it's an equestrian show. You'll run across lots of people there. It's not going to be you're all by yourself out there. But I spent my time. I don't know
about that one.
Prayerfully, you can go there. Believe me, the Father may take you there.
No, I know. It's just not.
You don't need to fear. He says, "Fear not those things upon this earth." You don't have to.
No, but if I do get a bad feeling, like he doesn't want me to go there, I got to pay attention.
Oh yeah, I would be 100% there. If you get the oops, then don't do it. Like I did when I was going to go through that fog and I was going to see what was going on, and that's what I was going to do. It was like, no, you're not. But it's scary that people don't realize they're in a world which is not what they think it is. You're born into this world, you grow up, and if parents don't tell you about the spiritual things, and how many really do, that there are things that can scare you, but don't be scared, come to mom or dad. You don't tell them the details. If anything ever scares you, tell us. And as a parent, and I'm going to talk to parents, if your child comes and says, a bear comes and talks to me at night, don't sit there and go, oh, now it was just a dream. Take them seriously, because that might be a demonic or an evil entity taking your child along, and when he goes outside, could be one that leads him into oblivion or or creates an environment in which he steps over to the other side without dying. People can do that, I believe. Walk through evil portals that, and they use those children for what? Who knows? It might create some of these creatures. We don't know. I don't say that that's true, but we don't know what happens. And we don't understand life and Earth. We think we do. Scientists try to tell us they know. But how come they clam up on certain things and you ask questions? They go, oh, can't talk to me. No. Or walk off. When the government hides things, there's a reason. And I sometimes agree with them, and they're hiding the what they call the alien thing, because they know the darker aspects of some of that we don't know. And I know some darker aspects of things that they don't know. And I know that one guy that I posted there that's a scientist at Area 51, he started as a child, as a rocket scientist as a child. And he had, quote unquote, like Tesla, he had dreams. And he did his thing. And he made, oh man, you wouldn't believe it. You'd have to look at that I posted. And I haven't finished, viewing that. But look at those things. And it all ties into things that we have talked about where this nation is going and why it is going where it is going. It's what Eisenhower talked about, the military-industrial complex, the Iron Triangle. That's what is ruling the earth now, because technology. Governments can't help it. It's like putting a child who loves ice cream in an ice cream shop and telling him, you can do whatever you want. Is that child going to come out of that ice cream shop by himself without you dragging him out? No, he's going to want to hang out as long as he can. And unfortunately, the carrot on the stick for the world is power and the love of money. Think about that. If you love money and you seek power and you get into one of these programs and things where you have power, where you can tell politicians to shut them up, and believe me, there are some generals in there that Congress, nor the president, nor anybody will cross. And they have the power to say, no, that's not going to happen. Yes, that will happen. We don't believe that, but it's true. I've been in the military. There are people that when they walked in, the whole world stopped because they were there, and they are it. And I think they do work. I think they do good work sometimes. Sometimes they don't do good work. Sometimes they do evil things in the name of good, so to speak. This is the best way for this situation. Okay. Is it guided biblically? That's questionable at best. And I know that I have nothing against anybody in the CIA or in NSA or in the Black Projects. However, here's the caveat. If it goes across scriptural lines that should not be crossed, then you should not do it. That's the area of conflict where Satan gets in. Can Satan appear? Yes, he can. Does he? I think he does. And in certain instances, he is represented by himself in some forms of government somewhere. No, not in D.C. No, not in any place where there is the camera or anything that can catch. Now, sometimes we call it the camera. With YouTube, all of these YouTube things are putting out disinformation about this is happening. You don't know, but here it is, right here. We got it. 99% of that is pure BS. I've looked at it and go, no. And there's some that I found that go, this is getting on the line here. And they got something. One is that scientist that they threw out on 51. Now, he might represent the scientist. It's the bald guy with the white shirt. Maybe he's the scientist, or maybe he is not. And he's just representing. But, point being, he's got some neat information. And there are people that are authorized by Congress in certain sectors to kill people that go too far. Simple as that. And they don't do it in traditional ways. They make it look natural or ways that cover the fact that it has been an operational hit. That's the way they do it. And 9 times out of 10, if they do it well, you never know. You can't be sure. and it's just open for speculation. And I know that I was on the map based on how I've responded to things a little bit, but I'm not worried about them dying. It's just like the Father. The Son went as far as he could, then it was time for him to go, then he went. And then the power was given for him to die. Okay. That's the way I look at it. But am I going to fear them for that? No. You have to just take what comes based on your stance. Be prepared. It could end up very badly, or the Father could be gracious and not let you go through it. As I told the guys when we were going through those meetings at the Hofbrau, Harry's, I miss Harry's. But anyway, don't think that it's not noticed. Don't think something can't happen. Don't think your life is secure. It is not. But I respect those who do what they do. They're doing for whatever purpose they have been given to do. If it's evil, it's evil. If it's good, it's good. I stand for what the Bible says, and I will say what I will say based on that. They will say and do based on that. If they're fighting Satan's cause, they will come and kill us. If given that of the Father at the time it's set. It's appointed unto men once to die, and after that the judgment. We have to accept that. And, we simply have to accept who we are based on the Bible and go forward, and not in fear. Could they beat me into submission? Well, they could beat the body and everything else. But I don't want to deny the Savior, and I pray, we don't know ourselves. Am I truly what I think I am? May the Father be so. But if not, may I not deny him, nor turn to them. In other words, turn to them. And there's the men in black. There have been recent people that have been killed. That, gentleman that went to that conference in Poland, and he vomited up black liquid, it said. And he died. He was 39 years old. Very healthy man. Went to Poland, and he's dead. Maybe the Polish government didn't like his, or somebody didn't like what he was doing. And his computer came back to his parents after it had been scrubbed. They don't know what was on it. But he was there to talk about some of these things that I have dealt with. And I don't know if he was a man of faith. I am. And I speak of I am as real, and he is power. And I don't mean a little earthly power like big tornadoes or bears, and I wouldn't cross any of those things. Much less would I want to cross him, who could be a quintillion miles away, but yet is still here. He is beyond this universe. He is of and beyond everything that we can conceive of. And when I speak of these things that I talk of, I know there's a reality there that the governments and people do not delve into because it's not 100%, like the hollow earth. There are, I think, based on evidentiary things, a creation that is within the earth with an ocean, a smoky type sun, and people that are there. There's been enough, it seems like, you hear, is it there? Is it true? Well, if you listen to Admiral Byrd, he kind of gave hints. He was sworn not to tell, but he spoke in ways, if you look at his interviews in the 50s, you go, that guy, he knows something. The land beyond. And he was subtle. He didn't break his vow not to reveal, but he did lightly hint that it's big as the United States, and it's got all kinds of stuff. He didn't go into details, like it's green and beautiful, but I think that's what he was saying. It's big and beautiful, just like the United States. Lots of stuff. Animals, all kinds. And he didn't say it, but there might be, ancient animals that are not here, and ancient people that are not here that are there. Why do they not let people fly above the North and South Pole? Maybe they're hiding that. Why would they do that? What's there to hide from? So you have to think. The evidence is pointing to, yeah, something's there, because the governments are very adamant about blocking off the North and the South Pole. So you go with what you have, and you can deduce what is the basis for it on evidentiary things of the past. For example, the Nazis sent over 1 million people, they said, and 3,000 of their scientists to the Antarctic. Why? What was there? and that's not anything hidden. That happened. New Schwabenland. Why? Something was there. And Hitler, I don't think, died. I think he went to South America, went to New Schwabenland, and then when it died down, went to Argentina. Why? Because he could. And he knew things. And when Admiral Byrd went there on a mission to dislodge the Nazis, as it came about, they sent back and they were whipped. Seriously. So why did we send a major force down there in 47? I mean, 5,000 and maybe 13 or plus ships with aircraft carriers. And, you know, why? Why? Well, if you read the book The Smoky God, have you read that one?
No, I've never heard of that one.
Read The Smoky God, and that's representative of the sun that is in the center of the earth. There's some men that were from Norway or Sweden, one of those two, that went into the north in their boat and ended up in this place that they couldn't imagine. And there were these people about 12 feet tall they met. And they stayed there for 2 years, roughly. So that's a book that was written about their time there. So a lot of people say, oh, that's just fantasy. That's not what the guy was talking about. He wasn't talking about fantasy. He wasn't writing a book to be fantastical. He was a fisherman. So getting back to my point, this earth and our woods in the United States has in it, and due to the evil of our leaders, the Father then removes his hand of protection because they turn from his truth. Therefore, we're not as protected because of it. And it means it'll afflict Christians. It can afflict us. It can afflict people. Now, we are protected. I was protected. I didn't vanish, but I could have. I would have been prayerful in that vanishing, saying, Father, look where I am. Oh, my goodness. I can't make it home. What am I going to do? And I would have had to have dealt with it. And some people have to. Some people are there right now that disappeared, and I think are just trying to get back here and will never make it. I don't know, but, you know, some people disappear that aren't dead. And some people are of the type that just want to disappear and do disappear. There's that too. That's why I say it's a very small percentage that I think that actually into the realm of the spirit where something like this happens. You know, 1% I would think would be high, very high. But there is a reality of that in which I don't think Sasquatch or Bigfoot is of this earth. I don't think they're human. I think that sometimes when these quote-unquote interdimensionals take children and everything, that's what they make them to be. And then they bring them back here with great intelligence, great strength, and who knows? That's just my speculation. It has no basis in truth that I could support. But they're half human. You see human-like faces. Human think they communicate well. They don't use voices and speak, though I think sometimes they might be able to. And we have to understand that in this world, it's spirit, it's physical, and it's run by two opposing great powers, Satan and his minion, and the Father. And do the spiritual and the physical intermix at times? You've heard of portals open and people flying through the Bermuda Triangle going into areas and not knowing what happened, and they lose their direction, and all of their directional guides are spinning out of control. Things just seem to be dead. And they keep flying, and their engine is okay. And sometimes the engine cuts out, cuts back on, and they don't have any explanation. And you're entering, it's an electromagnetic phenomenon. And I think at times we walk into electromagnetic phenomenon which can alter the frequency and allow you to change frequencies going into another dimension called a portal. But it's an electromagnetic, I think, frequency aberration, which occasionally can occur. And then I think that allows a spiritual element to kind of do their thing. Now, angels can enter and leave by the Father's power, he gives them that power to appear, disappear, come into this realm or not in their dimension. And sometimes take other people into that dimension. Some of those angels have that power. And sometimes these things do occur. But like I say, it's not a heavy happening all the time. Like of the 1,600 people that have disappeared, probably one or two may have been actually, spiritually transported. And that, like the ones that visited the ferries in Ireland, and they say they saw a person and they went into a cottage, and then they came out, everything was different, and then later they came back to their land. Or the two children that were found in England, I forgot where, they were green-hued skin, and they were saying, we're from the land of St. Martin. We went in through a cave following our cattle, and we ended up here. And they were green, and they wouldn't eat meat. They ate beans. And finally the boy died, and the girl lived, and her skin color changed, I guess because she was on the surface, but she was an inner earth child. This is history. So, and it's been proven. And so you have to deal with that. So there is an inner earth dominion which the Father doesn't let us in, nor them out here, except rarely to testify of the creation of what he has done. And what the fall has done has occluded all of these things because we're fallen creatures and we are judged. So the realities that we face must be looked at in the spiritual realm as well as the physical, because we're in a spiritual, physical realm. And if you eliminate one or the other, if you're too much in that spiritual stuff, you kind of become a loose cannon. You have to balance it. And like I say, I try to keep my balance in saying that, wait a minute, there is that spiritual element. Not every child that goes out there is being carried away by spirit, Sasquatch, and the devil. That's not happening. But
could just be weirdos. Weirdos.
There are feral people in the woods.
Feral people. Yep,
yeah,
that's true.
There are feral that do not interact with society, that hide out in the woods of Northern California, wherever they want to be, and they live.
The Bohemian Grove, maybe.
Hey, it could be something there. Yeah, speaking of
there was actually one video that I watched that they claimed that there was a UFO there. So then we're talking about children. It's like, oh boy, here we go.
Well, that could be just.
I didn't see it.
Crap.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Unless they can give, when they come out of the blue with the story, and if somebody you've not heard, they've not been part of much of anything, you can probably say they're trolling and starting to put out BS.
That's how most of the Grove videos are, though. They're all just like, you can just tell they're just using them just to get clicks, That's it.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's just entertainment. It's not real, but it's not like that.
Right.
There's something really cool. They go, wow, they did a good job with this. May not be true, but hey.
Sure.
I'm not one that believes. I mean, I like all the YouTube access to this stuff, but I'm very discriminatory. It has
you have to be.
There's not, like I said, 99% of it go, no. And the stuff that does come up that seems true could have an element of disinformation in it also. The two things that I put there, Ben-nun and that scientist. I trust Ben-nun, Steve Ben-nun. Yeah, I kind of follow into him. And the scientist, you'll have to look at it. I haven't finished looking at that. But, it's undecided on that. It's kind of interesting the way he talks, what he's talking about. He doesn't seem much like a scientist to me, but it doesn't mean he isn't, because nothing is as it appears, And that's what troubles me, is I like to know things 100% one way or the other. But in life, you don't get that because you're not the Father. You're not the Creator. He knows in 100% where it is and where it goes and where it's from. We have to depend on him, and we have to stay out of areas that are not good. I mean, I've looked at television, for example, these new plasma televisions and new things. I remember talking about the black screen and everything is like a black goo. I think I was talking about that with you. I don't remember. But the TVs,
the black,
it's like it's
the black hand.
And well, they have the black material that they put in the TVs. They say it's almost like it's alive. Possibly could be. You don't know. You know, and the reality is that we're in a world that has a lot of demonic activity that doesn't appear demonic. Let me say it again. We have a lot of demonic activity that doesn't appear demonic. And it works through the media, television, and radio. And it's not that you listen and you're, demonically moved, but sometimes there can be subtle messages in there that are demonic of origin. Now, do people put it on there? Well, can a demon put it on there? Of course he can. You have to be prayerful. And if something comes on there that's obviously that you'll know that you feel it, you go, Father, deal with this. Don't let it afflict me. Because you're dealing with elements that are under the control and administration of things we cannot see. Principalities, powers, and darkness in high places. And I've seen people sometimes that make me terribly uncomfortable. Not just by their appearance, but by what I feel is the presence with them, or that is them. I don't know. And if you've run across a person like that, you look at them, they don't look quite right, and you get this omen of feeling of, wow, oh, and you want to leave. I've had that happen to me. I try to observe it when it happens, too, because who knows? Angels can take human form, whether evil or good, I think, and then walk among us. Now, you're not going to know it by looking and say, oh, there's a devil there. That's a devil. I know it. No. But if you're of the Spirit and you're sensitive, you're going to go, uh-oh. Ooh, this doesn't feel good. And if you're ever in a crowd and you're suddenly uncomfortable without any reason, look around. Identify the source if you can. And be prayerful. Say, Father, what? Who? What? Is there anything here unseen, or is it an angel in the flesh moving about? And
I would just leave. That's happened to me two or three times, and one time I actually almost threw up because the evil presence was so strong. But I was able to leave, and yeah.
Because that means that's their space. This is my space. And
yeah.
And now the outdoors where I was, it wasn't their space. They administered it, I guess, but they couldn't cast me out because I was out there to praise the Father. Maybe that's why they hated it. They didn't like it.
Because you were stubborn. You're like, no, I'm staying.
and I didn't get frightened off, although I'm sure they don't like it when you're sitting there praising the Father in a dominion in an area they don't want you to do and around places. And they don't like it because it reminds them of one thing: they're going to be judged. And if you were one of them and you heard singing praise the Father, what would you think? Oh no, leave me alone. That's not yet. Leave me. Oh, come on. And I kind of understand. Not that I understand them, but I understand the feeling that when it's just like somebody come and sing the praises of Satan. What would you do? You go, oh,
right.
No, I'm gone. Just
I'm out of here.
And if it's in your space, guess what? You're moving them out. So I kind of get it from that perspective. And the thing that most people don't understand, these creatures might be based on our sin and them. They might even be more righteous in the eyes of the Father. And that's when they may be able to extol a pound of flesh or a little bit of the Father says, well, if you want to instruct them, just don't do this. I think it happens like that, just like with Job. So that's why we have to seek the Father every day and pray to be pure and purified, because if you run into a spirit that has a little up on you, guess what? He may have a little lesson for you. And I think that's what I got that one time out in the woods. Something I deserved. Not that I liked it. It wasn't very fun. And I thought I might be dead because I couldn't get out of that. It's like being in a maze in which there is no exit. And that scared me and bothered me. When I finally got home, I was so thankful. But then after that, things started going wrong. Things started And I won't go into details, but I thought, chastening, problems, and it did. So, be prayerful for your family. Keep praying for it, and keep faithful, because it doesn't even take being disobedient and doing something evil. It could be a thought against your wife or against it doesn't matter. And we all have them sometimes. You have to go, no, that's not correct. No, I shouldn't. No. And I've had to deal with myself recently and go, no, no, no. That's a thought. Maybe I thought it. Maybe it's dark. I don't know. But Father, help me, because I don't want that to take root in me. And sometimes we let things get rooted a little bit, and then we have to dig them up and out. And I encourage you, whatever you have, if any, because we all have them, dig them up with the Word and throw them out. Whether it be a wife, a friend, or anything, doesn't mean you have to go to them and confess, but you confess to the Father, my thought towards that person is not good, or this one. I don't have the right to judge that. Even though they may be wrong, it's not my place to judge them. Mine is to present you a way of relief, not me tell them or think to myself, oh, they deserve, oh, they need. We don't know what they need. We're not the Father. And I think that's what brings some of these judgments that we see happening in the world. People think things wrong, end up in the wrong place, and a spiritual entity sees it and goes, looky there, one of the foolish. Well, Father, I think I'm going to do something. Do you oppose? If not, then it opens doors for them to instruct us. And David Pilates discovered this from a ranger who spoke to him. He said, there's a lot of stuff they're not telling you. And he's a former police officer and written the books Missing 411. Look at those books and read one of them, or any of them, or all of them if you want. I don't know. I haven't read them, but I've read certain stories from the cases of it, get the idea and go, wow, that's depressing, and a 2-year-old that's with mama ends up, 15 miles away. Could that 2-year-old walk and run and go through? No, that doesn't make sense. Something or somebody had to get him there. And that's where he goes, but he doesn't say what. He just says, how did they do that? A 2-year-old, a toddler, goes up 6,000 feet, which would be hard for a person, through these valleys, through a river, over this, through this brush, and ends up here, up on a ledge, which would be hard for. How did they get there? And it's either by a human element or some element, human, or is it otherwise? Rarely otherwise, but could be otherwise. And that's what people need to face sometimes. You're dealing with the, oops, it's not the usual. It might be the unusual, which we don't want to think about, look at, or talk of. And preachers need to preach in a way that illustrates that without glorifying these things to an extent that it kind of makes them like entertaining. The death of a child or the loss of a child in this way is horrid. But I like Steve Quayle and Steve Ben-nun and Marzulli because they're dealing with things that we don't deal with in the mainstream churches. Why is that? Mainstream churches don't want to deal with this. They consider it whacked, but it's in their scriptures. And the Son made reference to certain things in this. And they need to deal with that. They need to deal with him on it and listen to what he says. Because they have to own the fact that they need to preach the truth, the whole truth, and even the inconvenient truths which are there. And one of them is we're in a spiritual world, and sometimes spirits do intervene in the lives of children and adults in ways that are physical and damaging and frightening. And preacher, teacher of the Scripture, look at your Scriptures and deal with that in a balanced fashion. Don't preach the devil's out grabbing children. No, that's not true. We have protection. But there are those who are not settled in their heart with the truth and with their spirit. Deal with your children. Tell them what to do. If something happens that they don't understand, they can't find anybody, begin to pray and praise the Father and ask for the way home. The Father's ear listens. And he says, forbid not the children to come to me, for such is the kingdom of heaven. So, maybe you don't believe in the Almighty, but you believe in the safety for your children. Give him the glory and say, hey, son, if this ever happens, you got to tell a child who's young, you can't tell him, the boogeyman's going to get you, and here's what you do. No, you go, if you're ever scared or frightened, and you're out with mom and dad, and you lose mom and dad, just do this. And set up something where they can get help from the Father, the spiritual help they need to get out of the situation. That's what I'm talking about this for, and what it's about. And even for you, because these things can happen to adults, children, and I've seen some strange things in my life, and I've learned a lot here recently where the Father has opened up more. And I'm thankful that we have the truth to hit us in the head. Many years ago, I wouldn't have been in talking about these things, Sasquatch, spirits, abductions, because I considered it fringe things that only people who were uninformed or who were trying to perpetuate hoaxes or that kind of thing. I have since learned really that maybe that's not true all of the time. Some of the time, yes, but not all the time. And you need to do your diligence and look at it, from a scriptural balanced perspective and put it in a scriptural balanced way. And I pray for everybody out there. You're living in a spiritual world whether you believe it or not. And angels can be in human form, and evil ones or good ones. It depends on the Father allowing it for his purposes or for the curse's purposes. Some people are cursed, and the Father says, oops, I can't intervene there. This is what I did. This is what I said. So I've got to leave that with them and see what happens. I can intervene at this point and do this. Or I can do nothing because of my word based on time. We don't understand all the things that the Father is doing based on ancient curses, ancient blessings, and things like that, which he has bound himself with in the Word. And there are certain people who go through those lines and don't know they're part of this lineage that could have a curse involved. That's something you have to pray about, because I think about that and go, Father, I don't know if I...
A curse?
Well, yeah. Look at the children of Eli. When the Father said, okay, you're cast out from the priesthood, and your lineage forever is cursed forever. Well, that still applies. It's not something that doesn't apply anymore. It still applies. His word is true. And that means if anybody is of that lineage, you may not even know it. And that's of the Jewish and Israeli faith. But you may not know you're part of that line that is under that. And that's scary. That's scary.
But if they don't know, God knows that too.
Yeah, so. Exactly. He does. He knows whom he has to act upon those words of his. He knows who are part of that line. We do not. So it leaves them open to things that may not be open for everybody, if you understand what I'm saying. And so, it's you're saved by the blood, and guess what? You can be cursed by your blood. His blood saves. Our actions and our forefathers' actions affect us today. That's the truth. It's good to know your lineage, so you know how to pray. Because you'll find people go, ooh, gosh. And it's not a pleasant thing to think about, but look at it. That's reality. People don't like to think, that's not real. Yes, it is. And there are some people that do not follow the word that do know that it's true. Because that says that in the Bible, that everybody knows it's true, but they stick their head in the sand and turn away from it and tell themselves and get with people that tell them, oh, that's just lies. But deep down, and especially since they're made in the image of him, your mind and your soul, your own DNA goes, you're lying to yourself. And innately, eventually, they come to the, this could be, maybe it's true. Or even if it is, they push it aside. But everybody at a point is given the knowledge, he is real. and they're brought to that point by him. And these spiritual things and things that I talked about that happen are real. I'm not here to scare people, but it's scary. I'm not here to drive people to, stay awake at night with their flashlight wondering what that bump was. And I've had things happen that were unexplainable, about things flying around or dropping, and I go, oh no, that again. Father, I can't fear it, even though it makes me kind of go, oh no, what's going to happen? I can't sit there and let that dominate me even at the moment. That one thing by the bed that happened to me one time. No explanation. So the only thing I could come up with is I was being played with. And I went, I'm going back to sleep. Forget it. I didn't let it dominate me. I can't let something fearful. And they can take any form. They can take the form of alien.
Yeah.
And come at you in the dark and go, and you see this thing that you've seen that, the teeth come out and it's going to kill me. Oh. And you got to go, you've taken on that form. Father, you made it look pretty good. Praise your name. Look how well developed it is. Look how much power you gave this thing. They can just do that. Praise your name. That's not kind of what they expect. And
no, and most people probably wouldn't do that.
No, they just
would
freak
pray,
out and nearly crap their pants and want to run. Which is the reaction.
Well, I mean, I know people who have faced demons, who have faced things because they opened things that they shouldn't have, and the first thing that they did was pray.
Exactly. They know what to do. And everybody that's presented with a situation when they're fearful for their life, guess what
they do?
And you know why? In their hearts they know he is real because they are real and created of his image. That's a fact. Everybody, as they say, there are no atheists in foxholes. There are no atheists in situations of danger where they think they may die at any moment. There's no longer an atheist involved because they think, I know there's a real one. I'm going to cry out. I know I've been a jackass and I told you I didn't believe you, but you know what? I need you now. And the Father will respond. Sometimes he will spare them, even though they go back. And that's the craziest thing is sometimes after they get through it, they go back to doing what they were doing. That's the sad thing. But
that is sad.
Let me preface this next segment, small thing here.
Okay.
And this is that in this world, the things that we think are real are not, and the things that we cannot see are the things that are real. It says this world that we see is temporal. What we do not see is eternal. Now think about that. The things that we do not see are eternal. That's the spirits, angelic, and other things that we do not even know of. And they're creatures and things that are good and evil and not benign, but have decided to kind of stay neutral as best they can. And sometimes you hear of spirits and things being helpful. And the fairies, they say they're malevolent and they're nice. They can do good or do evil. And so these things that are considered myth and lore have a basis in reality. And this preface is to say, the next thing I want to talk about, since I'm kind of from Britain and I'm British, I want to deal with the fairies. I've been researching that a little bit. And what are fairies? What are they really? They're spirits. And
you're talking about Tinkerbell?
No, that's Disney-esque. Fairies are nothing like anything Disney has to show. The reality of fairies is that they're particularly of themselves scary looking. They're not pretty creatures. And the fairies are those that afflict men. And if you go to Iceland or some places in Ireland, Wales, Britain, people talk about the wee folk and everything. They're not really wee folk. That's how they present themselves. It makes them look diminutive and small and harmless, but they are far from that. If you look at Brian Frond, F-R-O-N-D, and he deals with fairies. But those are based on the lore.
Deals with deals with the he.
Well, he's an artist.
Okay.
And I think he's involved in what's called the fairy faith, the belief in fairies.
Belief in fairies. Okay.
And look at his books. And now, fairies are not gentle, kind creatures. They're spiritual entities that are called elementals. Fire, water, air, earth, the four. That they were to administrate on the earth. When the fall came, well, it became different. And they became, there's an animosity in the spirit realm between men and spirit.
Okay.
We are fallen creatures, and they fell. And nature and all of that fell under a curse. Which, if you think about an elemental that was ruling over this great, beautiful earth, man fell and brought a curse on all of that. Well, how would you feel as a spirit that oversaw that? And you would find that pretty dismal.
Which is why they might be more neutral, though. But you're saying these fairies are actually more violent.
They're malevolent.
More evil.
They're malevolent. And they don't like human beings. You know, leprechauns that have a pot of gold and everything. You know, that's hearsay. That's just a bunch of talk. Now, do spirits sometimes have gold or something they're attached to from the past? Maybe. And
they were carrying gold.
But the fairies are not anything but evil spirits that try to appear nice or intriguing. They try to get you interested and to go with them, to take you away. And that's just subsequent to the fall and them leading men away from their life and destroying them. And they're fighting against humankind, as Satan and his minion do. And sometimes they try to make it look sweet. And I've heard of stories of great, beautiful music and a big banquet table out, and they're all eating at this table and everything. But you go there and you ask for the reality. You're in a cave with a bunch of diminutive-looking, weird creatures, a curse, and there's nothing there but stones and leaves and junk. And it's a ploy.
So these fairies, are they kind of the size of dwarfs, like Snow White?
Well, they present themselves as dwarves,
or like gnomes.
Dwarves, gnomes, sylph, leprechauns, brownies,
they're all
as they were
different
called.
types of forms. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's different types and different elementals, as they call them, based on what they were to do on the earth in regards to the creation. And I think that as such, they have, as all spirits apart from the Father, no care for humanity, or prefer not to deal with or do not like. And there are people that have been actually carried away by them, or led away, or entranced, as glamour, as it is, as they call it, and fairy glamour that just catches your eye and you just wander off. And it's kind of like portal, electromagnetic portal. You just kind of walk away and you're gone. You just vanish. And that's some of the things that I have read come across that is in the same style and way that in the ancients when they disappeared, that they said they were taken by the fairies, or the fairies were upset with them. Don't upset the wee folk. And so some of this, strangely, is tied to places. If you go to places, certain places where they don't want you, or a spirit is unhappy with you there, they just say, well, we'll take them and we'll diminish them or lead them into their own death, or let them wander in this space forever till they're gone, till the Father takes them or whatever. Those kinds of things, I think, can happen. How much and when and where, and does it happen often? Probably not. But like I say, it depends on the Father and also the spirits and at large, whatever they are, and then curses, ancient curses, which are in effect, which sometimes, or no, not sometimes, the Father honors what he says. And if you're under one of those lineages of where a curse was applied in the ancients, it applies today as it applies then. And you have to pray, because that means you're open to things that not everybody is, but some are. And that's why I pray. I don't know. I'm an adopted kid. I don't know if I'm under, I'm under British, based on at least what I trust to be, based on Ancestry.com, DNA, that I'm British. So that could be so. They may miss something. They think these things are authoritative. Yes, they are to most extent, but I don't consider them 100%. And they can establish a person as being the person who's done something based on their DNA, but deciding your lineage and where you're from, that's less exact, I think. And errors can be made. So, with that, going into the fairy thing again, fairies and aliens could be one and the same. Fairies and demons could be one and the same. Playing their card to confuse you. That's part of the thing. They can lie, they can deceive, and that's part of it. And aliens or fairies or demons, the fallen angels are a different core altogether. And what they did was made a pact. 200 went out on Mount Hermon. And, where did the Savior go and send out the 70 disciples? He was on Mount Hermon. And they had 70 different gods throughout this world, and this was him saying, we're taking it back. I believe that's from Steve Ben-nun in the teachings on the scriptures there. So go to that and look at that. There are some people that are part of the faith, but are not of the faith. We have to deal with them. I pray not you or I be of such. Father, you're the salvation, and it is your good will to do what is right. And with that, I understand that this world is not ours. We're not at home. This isn't our home. No matter how comfortable we are wherever we are not home. And we're going to be rejected, and it's kind of like we're homeless people, like Abraham, looking for the city that is built and held by the Father. We're not there yet. We won't be until He brings us there and grants us His gift of salvation. That is the salvation completed when we are there with Him in the city, this holy city of New Jerusalem. And that indeed will be a joyous time in which brothers and sisters will be of one mind, one heart, one truth, with no disparity. And that day I look forward to. And when all spirits will be placed in subjection, whether they be evil or good, unto the Father, and those that don't belong will be cast out, as He said. All the whoremongers, the sorcerers, the dogs, and those that love to lie and did evil, and love their evil, He'll cast out. And all which love the truth will be brought in. Hallelujah, and may His praise name be lifted forever. Amen.
Amen.
And with that, I say that the things that I talked about earlier, and the part that got dropped, let me know what it is and what we are on, and we'll go into it again.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll do that. And it's an amazing thing. And the Father is a great and eternal Creator and a lover of His people. He hates what He's going to have to do to judge this world and the wicked. It's no pleasure to Him to do this. But it is going to be gruesome. We're going to see, I think, the Nephilim unleashed. And brought up. And the chained ones and the stars and everything are chained in not South America, but in Antarctica. They are chained in judgment there. And that's why I think everybody was going to South America. They know. And those that know, know. And the Father knows they're there. And I was just reading Jeremiah. And, woe to the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep and don't tell them the truth. Which, you need to tell them about these things somewhat, what we have discussed. Maybe not in the bigger congregation, but with those who can handle it. Because you can't sit there and just throw this out there. You have to slowly inform those who need to know. Because this is the world we live in. So talk about the spiritual nature of this world, the evil of it, and how you can be confronted by evil ones, minions of Satan or whatever, wherever you are, and they can actually abduct, move, change this world in ways that we don't understand or why, but they do. And can they abduct? Yep. Can they kill? Yep. Do they do it often? Does the Father allow that? Mostly not. But if a child ends up missing due to something strange like this, they need to have the tools to pray and not just mumble and cry. They need to say, Father, help me. I praise you, Heavenly Father. And that gives a tool for escape, praising the Eternal Father. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like I did, definitely go that route, if you can. Because sometimes it's just the Father that brings you out, in spite of the fact that, like in my case, my mind was blanked almost. I'm surprised I made it out alive. I really am. And thankful. So, in that, when you're going to anywhere, and it can happen anywhere, anytime, because it just takes a moment. Like one gentleman they talked about in Philadelphia appeared suddenly in 1700 clothes, and they looked back, and he disappeared. His wife said she was looking at him, and he saw waves that looks like through the air and a star coming down, and he disappeared. Why did that happen? He ended up hanging himself, they said. The Psi Factor was a show, I think it was, talking about it. So why do these things happen? We don't know. But you have to be prepared for things that you don't understand. And that, oh, that could never happen? Well, it has happened. Everything that you say can happen might happen. And that's just in the realm of possibility. But it's up to the Father, and like I say, the spirits at large, and we're dealing with those all the time, every day. We're crossing spirits. No, they're not out to get you all the time. No, but they do watch. They do know. They're intelligent, and they can do things. So let's be wise and not imbalanced, but take into account the realities that we face. Bring it up to the pastor, see if there's a group able to do that, to discuss these things. Because, you know, when you're dealing with your children, you want them to be safe, but you don't want to frighten them. You want to let them be aware, though, that when something happens, call out to the Father. Here's what you can do. And give them that tool. That's not wrong. It's not going to frighten them. But if they're ever in a scared situation, they will know at least to reach out to the Father. And most likely He can give them a way out, which is what I would like to see happen.